representatives from 3 NBA teams say they will support moving the team out of Seattle.
It's not a matter of if Seattle will leave downtown Seattle, but when.
July 2nd, 2008 is known as one of the grimmest days in Seattle sports history. After a long legal battle, the Sonics' 41-year run in Seattle came to a close.
The NBA will be in Oklahoma City next season, playing their games. The transition and the move of this operation and this team begins tomorrow morning from Seattle to Oklahoma City. And it begins with the most important piece of our organization. It begins with our players.
So after 41 years of basketball in Seattle, the Sonics are packing up the trucks and heading to Oklahoma City. Ultimately, this deal came down to money, and with $75 million on the table, the city of Seattle was willing to part ways with the team they've supported for the last 41 years.
Fires across court, Kemp's got it right up into the alley.
Loved it, and the Seattle fan base was great. Now, this is before, obviously, Gary Payton and Sean Kemp came onto the scene doing their thing, and Kevin Durant had his rookie year there. They lost it because they couldn't come up with public funding. We understand that. But the bottom line is that I think they've learned the error of their ways to some degree. It's a phenomenal sports town. The only thing that exists in the Pacific Northwest as it pertains to basketball is the Portland Trailblazers in the entire Pacific Northwest. That's a huge fan base that exists out there that's been largely ignored.
Hold on a second.
What?
What do you mean 7-2 all-time at home against the Nuggets?
Well, they were in Seattle.
They were in Seattle. That don't count.
It's a franchise
That
record.
doesn't count.
That's not my stat.
You can't take another city's stats. Am I right or wrong, guys?
Yeah, you're right.
They say time heals all wounds.
Weasel!
But for Sonics fans, that couldn't be further from the truth.
For him to think that somehow or another that everybody's forgiven and forgotten about that, the loss of the team, every time you see Oklahoma City play in the NBA playoffs and anywhere else, you're reminded, of the loss of the Sonics, and you're reminded who was responsible for that loss.
The National Basketball Association Commissioner Adam Silver came out kind of out of the blue and said that they've dusted off their talk about expansion, that perhaps the NBA is more interested now in expansion than it was a year or more ago. Have you had a chance to speak with NBA Commissioner Adam Silver?
I actually have, and I was able to speak to him right before Christmas after he made that announcement. I've watched him. I've met him on a number of occasions. I actually was a guest of his at some games in New Orleans when I was down there for a conference. And I know a few things. Number one, the commissioner never gets ahead of the owners. And number two, if you want a city that wants a team, don't get ahead of either of them. But it is very good news for the city of Seattle that they are thinking of an expansion team. And I was honest with him. He knows Seattle wants to be at the front of the line. We're where the team should be. But we will be respecting their, as they move forward with their ownership, because the ownership, as you know, has to approve it.
I mean, what did he tell you in terms of how real this is? Because it's gone from we're not interested in expansion right now to, we might talk about that in the near future.
I think it's real, but I think, again, the commissioner is going to, consult the ownership, and the ownership for the first time itself is being very public that they think it is probably a good idea for basketball. Part of that is the COVID economics. Part of it is the economics of sports. But look, there's no city that I think is better positioned to be successful. We're going to have the best arena in the country. And I'm not just saying that. When people walk in that building, they will be amazed. We are a city that, even with COVID, when we come out of COVID, we have so much upside here. And this is a city that's going to come back. We are a place that we already have a national championship basketball team that's in the NBA family. It's called the Storm. They are amazing. I would like them to get a brother team here in Seattle. And we have the Kraken, and the Kraken is going to hit the ice at the end of this year, just when we need to have another team to root for. So I'm pretty optimistic that the Sonics are in our future. It's not a done deal, but if they move forward, Seattle will be ready.
So how would you describe what that conversation was all about between you and the commissioner?
I think it was a very positive conversation. And I think he has said publicly that Seattle's at the top of the list. Look, if there's basketball karma, we'll get the Sonics. If there's economics involved, we'll get the Sonics. If there's just smart, what's the best city in America, we'll get the Sonics. So I'm pretty optimistic, but he is not going to make a commitment. He's going to follow the ownership, and they're going to have a process in place. But once that process is set, I think that Seattle will be very competitive. And look, I want my kids and my grandkids to be able to watch the Sonics in Seattle.
Hold on a second.
What?
What do you mean 7-2 all time at home against the Nuggets?
Well, they were in Seattle.
They were in Seattle.
That don't count.
It's a franchise
That
record.
doesn't count.
It's not my stat.
You can't take another city's stats. Am I right or wrong, guys?
Yeah, you're right.